from Morsenal Studio B in Chandler, Arizona, this is MayaCast. Welcome to another edition of MayaCast. I'm your host, Tom Shadle.
And I'm your host, Kip Parcell.
And this is episode 147 for Friday, September 1st, 2017. Proxy Mark 0. And coming up on today's show, like last week, if you listened, we sort of tangented off into a little rant. I sort of tangented off into like a little rant about proxies and conversions, and I don't think I really made my point very well, and then I found out I didn't because I was, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Anyway, we had an email from Michael from months ago, from like July 18th or something, who was asking this very question about what's kosher for proxies and what's not. So that's going to be the topic of our show for this week. We're going to talk about proxies and conversions and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, but first, the first section, before we get to that, what I'm sure will be an excellent debate, and I'm sure it'll be totally salt-free, we want to rate. We haven't rated releases in 2 months. So we've got
goodness gracious.
We got the August releases and the September releases. And I think what we might do, unless I forget by the time we get there and we do it differently, I think we'll do August this week, which were all the Gen Con releases, and then save the September releases for next week's show. To save a little bit of time so that we have plenty of time to talk about our proxy war. the great O12 proxy war.
I was like, where have I heard that before?
But first, Kip, please remind everybody, if you will, about MayaCast MasterGlass Q3 2017. That was your cue.
Challenge. So that you have about, when this airs, 4 weeks. Yeah, I was going to say, no. 4 weeks to get that done. Seems to be a lot more popular than the last one because this is heavy infantry. So any single heavy infantry model that you wish to enter is eligible. As we said before, if it has like little guys on the side like tin bots, those don't need to be painted along with it. Just anything that has the tag HI, like Hawaii, if you know your United States abbreviations. But yes, you get one picture of the before picture, which can be primed, or like, oh man, I put one like slab of paint on his shoe, like don't worry about that, just as long as it's new, time stamped, and then up to 4 pictures, all neatly labeled with your name and the number after it. So Tom Shadle 1, Tom Shadle 2, it's usually Kip Parcell 1, Kip Parcell 2, but all in one single email when you are finished, which most people do nowadays. We just have to keep saying it, and email that to kip@mayacast.com.
And Tom at MayaCast.com.
And yes, we will probably be doing that after Armageddon.
Wow.
The episode after Armageddon, we'll be going through that, which will give us time to really judge. A lot of the entries look really good. I'm excited for this one. We had
a lot of questions on Facebook, or a lot of people like, oh, there's a contest on, what do I do to enter? How do I enter? What do I win? And all this kind of stuff. And so part of me is kind of like, it's a podcast, and the prizes, the competition and the prizes are for our listeners. So part of me is like, we're not going to tell you because we want you to listen. That's the whole point of the thing, is it's a show you listen to. And so right? So we want it to be for our listeners. That's why we do it. And then the other part of me is like, if you're not listening, but you're part of our, Facebook page or whatever, like maybe we should like post like, are we growing into more of a multimedia thing where we're doing blog posts and stuff? I don't know, but my main thought is like we're a podcast, so listen. Then you know how to enter, and you know what? None of those people will be upset because they don't listen, so they will never hear that.
That's a good point because
it's for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it is grown to where we do have a pretty active forum, so I could see extending that.
Sure.
If we need to, because that is another part of the audience of MayaCast. So a lot of times maybe people don't have time to listen to the podcast, but they like to enjoy.
I just find it weird, right? Like they like the page or participate, and then I just don't have time to listen to your podcast. Then what? But why do you like the?
Because it's a fun group of people that they can safely interact with each other.
Can they?
Most of the time.
Yeah, not if I get going. But yeah, so MayaCast MasterGlass with a philosophical interlude. And then events. I've got the folder.
World.
So there's a thing happening, a new thing, called the Baltimore Brawl.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
That's going to happen on Saturday, November 11th. I should have let you do this. You can pronounce everything. It's going to be Saturday, November 11th, all day long. It's at Games and Stuff in Glen Burnie, Maryland, Baltimore area.
Nice.
It's going to be 4 rounds, 300 points. They want to try and get up to 50 players. They had 40 last year, I guess. It's going to be $55 a person, and they will have more info after ITS 9 drops, but we will throw the link into the show notes. They were a satellite tournament last year, one of only 4. Of course, last year there was the whole thing where satellite tournaments was like a blog post on the Infinity thing, and then a week later it was over. And so I think this year a lot more people know about it. So maybe there will be more, but hopefully they will get their status approved again for this year. And again, the satellite tournaments are the ones where the winners get to go to get a spot reserved for them in Vigo. It's not like you get a free trip. You still gotta
gotta get there.
Get over there and do all that. But you'll have a ticket waiting for you. It won't get sold out. So yeah, Baltimore Brawl. I think Myomer from our local group is planning on heading out for a second year in a row. So good luck to him.
That's pretty awesome.
And everybody. And then just a reminder, if you are in the Pittsburgh area of Chicago, our boy Zach is running demos and games and stuff at Legion's Hobbies every Wednesday night, starting at 6 p.m., and you can find them on Facebook. The links to all this stuff are in the show notes. But yeah, so Pittsburgh...
I just laugh because, like, for those of you who didn't catch the inside joke on previous episodes, our friend Zach, everything in the Midwest he thinks is Chicago. Like, so... Chicago goes from Canada down to the Gulf.
Chicago.
So yeah, that's why he's in Pittsburgh, Chicago.
The Pittsburgh area of Chicago.
Yeah.
And people from Pittsburgh right now are going, did you just call us the Midwest?
That is a very true statement.
We're going to fight you.
That's a very true statement.
We are a short 8 hours from the shore. We're East Coast.
Yep.
Is that you, Kip?
I plead the fifth.
Is that your highly original?
Swore.
Is that your highly original and personalized ringtone, Kip?
Yeah, dude, I made that myself. Limited edition. I could totally tell you guys where to download it. I could have swore I turned that off. I turned my computer off. Let me make sure. All right, yeah, it is.
Jeez, for the love of Pete.
No, it was off. I hit it twice.
It was not an accident. It's a human imposter in the... Don't say again. Say again. Is Boston incursion imminent? Please confirm.
Incoming data from Bostria.
Infinity Intel.
So we talked about the Gen Con releases. We talked about the August releases as they as far as like the booklets and how they expand going from Ice Storm into like knowing more of the rules and how it throws you right off the deep end. You know, you played through Ice Storm and now here's a bunch more rules that we didn't tell you about, and go for it. And so they're great sets for that. They bring up to 300 points, all of that. What we didn't do is our traditional Schreiber scale rating of the models. For those new listeners, we have a rubric that we use to assign rankings to models, sent in by listener Schreiber, but his first name is escaping me. Schreiber. Mr. is his first name. Mr. Schreiber. And basically, it's a 1. Is it so bad that I wouldn't roll dice for it using Kip's dice? Like, it's...
Ouch.
Yeah.
Don't be so harsh on my dice, man.
And a 5... Well, okay. Should we go in order?
Let's go in order, yeah.
Possibly.
Like 2...
A 2 is like a little below average. You're a little disappointed. 3 is the standard of the standard Corvus belly release, which is a very high watermark, and so they're very, very good. But still, it's basically their basic standard that you've come to expect. 4 is hey, even if I don't play that faction, I might buy it because that's a really cool model. And then 5 is like, even if I'd never played Infinity, I'm going to walk by that and see it, and I'm going to buy that model and might start playing Infinity just because of that model. So, that's our rubric for the noobs that might have missed it in the past. So, we get into... for August, we had the Operate Beyond Ice Storm. We had the Beyond, what do you call it? Red Veil.
Red Veil.
Thank you. And then there was the Chibi Musashi and the U.S. Ariadne Spec Ops model.
Gen Con version.
And, what's awesome is how I had everything all set up and logged in, ready to go with the pictures, and it totally reset the page. So let's start with Beyond Ice Storm, because Ice Storm was first. And you've got Pano and Nomads, and let us begin with... no, you know what? Let's not start with that.
Okay. What are we going to start with then?
Well, because I'd rather end on a high note later. So let's start with the Chibi Musashi.
Okay. That is a very fair point. Should I take this one first, Tom? Knowing how you feel. All right. Chibi Musashi. Cool idea. I like that. I like Mushishi. I like the idea that they released it because that's what Aristea was supposed to be, was a chibi version. I am very happy that they decided against that. So that Aristea can be kind of a crossover between the current models and the new models coming out for Aristea. That way, if profiles end up in Infinity, you have the models, and they just, to me, look a whole lot more appealing to somebody walking by. If they would have went with the Chibi, I think it would have got kind of pushed into oh, look at that's like Crossmaster, people would have been very assumptive, assumptive to it, because there is a lot of chibi stuff out there. Crossmaster Arena being the most popular, and I've played that, and I've played Aristea, and to me they are different. So I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad they released it so you could at least see what they're doing, because then it made me appreciate the newer models even more, because they look so much more badass than the chibi version. I'll give the chibi a 2 because it's not my style, and that's hard for me to do. Is it executed well? Yes. Is it cool for the people that like chibis? Yes. But personally, not my thing, bro.
And in a million hobby rooms across the nation, a million nerds just went, give them a 2.
I know, right? That's a hard thing for me to do. But yeah, for me, it's a 2. But you know what I'll you know what? I'm going to give the release at Gen Con a 4. The model's a 2, but I'm doing that because I think that it upped the value of Aristea in my mind. Like, it made me realize how much more badass that game is. And the models makes me appreciate them more, knowing what they originally could have been and what they are now.
So, luckily for us, I think is what you're saying, or part of what you're saying. Luckily for us, that they decided to go a different direction.
Yep.
But hey, so they've got the concept made, and they made the model, and hey, we already did it. We got the proof. Mm-hmm. Let's produce them and see if because people might want to buy them. You know?
It's a fun little collector's item,
right? And so they did that, and I believe the number. Who knows what online sales were like, but the number that were left in the booth, I think, support the decision to not go that direction for the game itself. But yeah, the body and the pose are exactly the same. It's just got an enormous head. I think if they were going to do a chibi style, they should have gone full chibi instead of just everything's to scale human, big head. Because that's like that doesn't make a chibi. It's just making his head huge.
I didn't even notice.
He doesn't have the big giant anime eyes.
I didn't even notice that.
So it's like half. It's a guy with a big. It's a guy with an enormous.
It's a mascot.
Right.
It is a mascot. Now I want it.
Okay.
Now I want it so that it can be on the sidelines and it's the mascot for your team.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. 2, and then we'll do the other one off. Let's do the Spec Ops. What do you think of the U.S. Ariadne Spec Ops, Kip?
So we're going to go from Kip gave it a 2 to normal Kip 5 all the way 5. That right there, that is a model that would make me just buy that to be like, I want that. I just want that. I don't care what faction it is. Or if I, was like, I'll start a faction for that model. I really like it. I like the, although he does look like a scuba diver a little bit. Or like a gas mask type of dude. When I first saw it, I was like, Tom, buy me 4. And then I was like, I'm just kidding. I don't need 4. One is enough. Yeah, totally dig it. I like I don't mind the tactical rock. I like that he's coming off kind of, I don't see him like doing the gangster shoot side pose, except like in my mind, he's pulling his pistol out ready to, it's like halfway into position because you know that if he's going to shoot it, his opposite hand's going to go underneath to support and then he extends. So to me, he's like mid aim. It's not so much of I'm sliding down a rock and shooting at you like a gangsta. It's more of like a mid pose to me. At least that's what I tell myself to like it more. But yeah, a funny thing too is Tom had pointed out something I'd missed that I'll actually let you tell everybody, and it cracked me up.
That you missed? How did you miss it? It's right there.
Because I was so enamored by the mask and just kind of looking at the paint job and then telling myself the story of how the gun is going to make sense to a Spec Ops soldier.
Why?
Because they would never shoot like that.
Yeah. My question was, why do the pouches say Spec Ops on them?
That's funny.
But it's, it's sort of like you see that in anime where stuff's labeled.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's just that sort of thing crossing over. Even like the Celestial Guard nope, Janshis have Janshi down the side of it. No, it's not Janshis. Who is it? Was it Celestial Guard?
Maybe.
Had down the side of their pants, had their unit name written. Anyway. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. No, I think he's fine. He was a brand new look, I think. It was pretty cool.
Super cool.
I don't care for the gun pose, despite your explanation. But no, I give it a 4. Give it a 4. I think it's pretty cool, and you can use it for lots of things in Ariadne. It would be a fine SAS. It would be so which is the point of the Spec Ops, and that ties nicely into what we're going to talk about in the second half of the show.
True.
But yeah, he's fine. It's all fine. Honestly, It would be great if next year they chose a different faction at Gen Con to do a limited edition model.
Oh, yeah, because it was Van Zant last year.
The U.S. Ariadna box.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
The Van Zant. Then the Ranger, the Unknown Ranger.
I was like,
And
no,
now it's the Spec Ops, so it's 4 in a row. I mean, I get it. We're America. But
I'm not complaining. And you know what's funny is remember when they first did that Van Zant, and I was like, oh, I like the axe better. No, totally like the rifle better. Totally like the rifle better now that I have them both built. So much cooler.
anyway, so that's Spec Ops. So Beyond Ice Storm, and we're going to start with the Bolt paramedic, and she is the definition to me of a 3. She looks like the other Bolts. She's just standing there. There's nothing totally off-putting about her.
And she's Pano.
She's got, I mean, besides that, she's got a medic gun. She's playing. She's a 3 for me. She's not bad. She's not blowing my mind. She's exactly what we've come to expect. That's right in the wheelhouse of a 3.
I would agree. And to all of our Pano lovers out there, don't take that remark to heart because one of my second loves after Caledonia was a Contasamento. So I do have, and military orders actually. Those were 2 factions I really wanted to do. But I would agree with you. No, I mean, straight up 3. It's definitely not bad, but nothing to flip your lid on.
And so now we have our first of the new
New Desirazi.
the newly designed Kamau troops from Varuna. This one's, what is it, an HMG? And he's striding and firing, and with the wetsuit combined with the Fusilier armor, it's a cool look. I dig it, and but I don't know if that's a model that I need if I play a different faction. I think it's a cool enough model, so I think that also for me is right in the wheelhouse of a 3.
Again, gonna have to agree with you. 3 on that because of everything you just said. And it was funny because I was like, man, what model was that again? Oh, Kamau. I'm getting what you get when you play against me in USAR.
Is it an Assay? No,
Yeah,
there's no code.
There's
is
no
it
code,
a
yeah.
Fusilier? No. I think it's a Crocman because of the wetsuit. Oh, wait, no.
So that is actually perfect that we're doing that now because I don't play that faction that often. And with the new models, I could totally get, everybody drink, get confused on that. But super, super cool. I like the pose a lot. And I like it way better than the old Kamau that looked like it was getting kicked in the back. Like the hacker, it to me always looked like she was getting kicked in the back by an invisible person because it was like her chest was like, brrr.
Oh, I just thought she was like sticking her booty out, pushing her chest out.
To me, I was like, Ninja in Tio Camo is kicking you right now. But yeah, solid 3. Solid 3 though. I think it's more of a solid 3 than the Bolt. It's a 3++.
Does not exist. And then we have our Swiss Guard HMG and Great Sword.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's Kylo Ren's sword, but the thing hasn't shifted all the way down yet because it's not fully mature.
Swiss Guard. So the Swiss Guard to me is sort of like an FJ Cruiser. And because some days I see an FJ Cruiser and I'm like, oh man, that looks really cool with the 2 colors and it's like an SUV, but like sport, it's cool. And other days I'm like, wow, that is an ugly looking car. And I don't know what it is, and it all depends on the day. And that's the FJ Cruiser to me. And the Swiss Guard is kind of like that because sometimes I look at it and I'm like, Pano Heavy Infantry, big deal, it's a 3.
Argument.
And then other times I look at it and I'm like, oh my god, it's Swiss Guard. I want to have the sword and the freaking gun and the rah. And then other days I look at it and I'm like, why is he holding his sword like that? So I'm really, I'm between a 3 and a 5 on this one on any given day. It's never below a 3. Some days I'm like, that's totally a 5. And other days I'm like, maybe a 3. So I don't know. If you've been tracking our ratings, have fun with that one.
Wow, that's hilarious. Somewhere between a 3 and a 5. I don't think you would let me off the hook saying
it's
that.
Either.
Oh, it's either.
It depends on the day. One day it's a 3. The other day it's a 5.
So if it's a day that starts with a T, it's a 5. Every other day, it's a 3. That's what I'm going to interpret. So when I first saw it, I was like, what is that? Another night? And that's like, oh no, Swiss Guard. So, great revamp though, because the other ones looked kind of puny. This one looks more badass.
I wish its leg armor was striped blue and yellow.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. I don't know, man. Like, because the 4 is like, oh, I want to get it, and it would make me want to start Pano. But there's other models that would want to make me start Pano rather than this. It is my favorite out of the box, though.
For Pano side?
Yeah.
Yep. So it could be 3.
I'm going to do it a 3.
Could be
I'm going to
5.
give it a 3.
Depends on what day I wake up. Then we have the Nomad side. And we have the Intruder with sniper rifle. And I like this one so much better than the male Intruder with sniper rifle, who's sort of holding a sniper rifle up and he looks a little weird. I don't even know if that one was digitally sculpted or if that was right at the end of hand sculpting.
Is it the guy with his hand up? Mm-hmm. I think that was the last of the regular.
Right, towards the end of... Mm-hmm. So this one's 3D sculpted. She looks lovely, really. Mm-hmm. And, she is... Wow, what a great just generic sci-fi model to use for whatever.
Yep.
And 4.
So, before I go to this one, I'm gonna give this Swiss Guard a 4. Because when I gave it a 3, and as I slid the picture over...
You gave what a 4?
Remember the Swiss Guard that we just did?
Oh.
And I said 3. As I slid it over, I could hear him going, you know you're lying to yourself.
So you gave him a 4?
Yeah, I'm doing 4. And on that segue, I'm going to have to agree with you on your assessment of the sniper and give it I actually want to give it a 5.
It's beautiful, but it's not epic.
Because, well, to me, this is my style. Like, it's very sleek. I'd see that. I'm like, oh, I could totally make a whole themed army up that's like really dark schemed, like sneaky ninja type nomad army. But then I'd have to play nomads again, and I haven't played them in years. So I'm going to stick with a 4 because it's definitely something that would make you want to start a faction, but I'm not going to run out and buy this right now. Mm-hmm. But I love it for everything you just said. Very sleek. It's very universal. Cross channels, we'll say, in the marketing world. Cross channel gaming epic. So totally 4 on my part as well.
So Hellcat swooping down. Like him a lot. Like the style. I don't know that he's blowing me away more than other nomads that have come out recently. So he's a solid 3 for me as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna give
high standard quality of Corvus Belli models.
I'm gonna give it a 3++. Yeah, no. The reason why, though, here's the reason why.
How did that rock appear on the spaceship he's in?
It's a piece of junk metal.
Tactical
it
rock.
looks like a rock from here, but I bet you when you turn it to the side, it's probably a piece of metal. And I'm just saying that. Anyway, so when they redid the Hellcats, I really, really liked them, like the original ones. But you can totally tell, like with the 3D sculpting, that they get more of a 3D pose that comes along with it. So I think that the upgrade is extremely more interesting. Like, to me, it's more interesting than the other Hellcats because he just seems like he's filling the 3-dimensional space a lot better. But I can't give it more than a 3 because you're right. It's falling into line with other stuff, but I do think that it's a vast improvement to the ones that they already have out now.
I agree. Are you using this same picture? Okay.
I'm using the straight on picture.
So
it's a rock.
I'm using one from the video that says Beyond Ice Storm, so I can see all 6 at once. And before we talk about him, I don't know if you can tell in your angle, but check out the bend in Kriza Borat's gun. It goes, it's got a banana gun.
It's on this one too.
Yeah.
It's made of rubber.
It does. It looks like the model's made out of bendy plastic that you get in a board game. and it's slightly melted.
Yeah, I wonder if they just missed that.
On hell, straighten that stuff out before you paint. Come on, man.
Oh, that is so upsetting to me. Just like the guy that goes.
So, Kriza Borax. What makes this guy for me is not his banana gun. It's
His banana hammock?
It's the canisters coming out of his shoulder blades.
Right.
I don't know why, because they're just like cans. Mm-hmm. I think they make him look awesome.
I was gonna say that's my favorite part.
I think he's the best model out of the 6. He brings down the house. He's imposing, and he's amazing, and I love him, and I want to hug him and kiss him, and he's awesome, and I give him a 5.
Nice. You know what's funny with this is he kind of has Toha tentacles. I'm like, hey man, nice Toha tentacles. Or if you guys remember The Edge of Tomorrow, like the crazy aliens, like the blue one that causes Tom Cruise to actually be able to loop time. It kind of reminds me of that in armor because it's like all connected. But I would have to agree with you. I was going to say the same thing. Like the canisters kind of make it unique to like that model. Originally, before the words came out, I thought this was going to be a character Taskmaster. I'm glad that they're not. It's its own unit. But oh man, I'm teetering between a 4 and a 5 on this. I would say 4 for me. It's
Sure. I think it's the kind of thing that somebody could see that picture of that painted model on the shelf and be like, I don't know what game that is, but I'm buying that because that model's just cool. Cool AF. And so that's why I gave it a 5. You know what? Totally entitled to giving it a 4.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with your point.
And then it comes with the bounty hunter.
Oh, that's true.
And, seeing him online, I was like, well, he's sort of weird. I guess he's good. But then I saw him in person, and he is definitely a solid 3. Not like a
3.
Not like I might give him a 2. No, he's definitely a solid 3 and almost a 4. Like, oh wow,
really?
He's actually super cool. So bounty hunter 3. I'm gonna give him a Kip 3++.
That's funny.
What do you think of the bounty hunter, Kip? It's your turn to talk about what you think.
3++, because I don't have his picture up in front of me right now. I'm trying to find it.
But you've seen it before, right?
Yes, I have. Actually, I thought it was cool. I was like, that's a really cool Hakkazlan model. Because that's what it looks like to me. It's a Hakkazlan model.
Arm tattoos are out of control.
So I do like it for, like you said, RPG-wise, though.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
He has a lot of character. You could do a lot with that, with a paint job.
Or, it's inspirational as you could see him and create a bunch of different stories of what he might be or who he might be.
I like his haircut.
Operation Red Avail.
I'm shaking my head up and down a lot.
So let's begin where we left. Let's begin where we left off with the previous box, and we'll start with the pre-order model, and that is Jacket McJackerson. The what do you call it? CSU.
That's a barely 3 for me.
The corporate guy in the jacket?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Remember when you gave me this box?
Yeah.
And I forgot to actually I was going to bring the model for you tonight. And I totally forgot to put it in my backpack last night. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm not in love with it. And I know Tom loves it. So
yeah, I do.
It's barely a 3. Like I think it's a nice.
It's a 5 for me.
Wow, really?
If I'm playing in a cyberpunk board game or whatever, right? Role playing game rather. Like, yeah, what a cool character. He's in that modern business suit, but he's futuristic. Yeah, I love it. The pose is great. Love everything about it. 5.
Yeah, so I'm totally gonna bring that to you because you're in love with it way more than me. And
he is the second best. Yeah, that's my foot.
Sorry, man.
He is the now
footsie over here.
Hey. He is the He is the second best model in this entire box.
Oh man. Okay, we have some differences on that opinions.
We have a Guilang sniper. She's aight. I'm still the old Guilang combi rifle dude is the best Guilang. with that the coat sweeping around him as if in the winds of Svalorheima. Mm-hmm. And this one's all right. It's a 3. It's fine. There's nothing off-putting about it. It's the bolt. It's fine.
I don't know about that.
But I was excited for the new Guilang, and I was just kind of like, oh, yeah, it's fine. Like it didn't make me go, wow, my God.
So here's why I'm teetering. And this may be unfair because we're supposed to be assessing off of like what we think of like by the pictures, but I built this box, all of them, except for the guy that I'm going to give you.
That's even a better and more experienced review.
So I pulled out the old Guilang, not the sniper though, the rifle, because I usually use the Ford Observer. I like the proportions of this one better, because the other one does look like a green sculpt compared to a 3D sculpt. So I actually like the proportions of this model better. But after building it, I was like, I don't really want to use that. I want to use the old one. Like I give this almost a 2 because I have it and I built it and I don't even know if I want to use it. And I definitely don't want to use it in my battle phone bag because that gun, that is going to bend no matter. You need magnets on this thing. Like it's going, unless you reinforce it. Like I don't even.
It's a super narrow barrel.
Extremely narrow. But it's when putting it on the base, I actually had to cut, reglue, and move it. It's just at a weird angle. Like I said, the detail wise is far better than the old one, by far. Detail wise, it was a pain to put together a little bit though because it's so small. But don't stop doing that because I actually like it because it's supposed to be a female, smaller model. But yeah, like to me, it's like teetering on a 2, man, because I have it and I built it and I don't know if I'm in love with it.
She's okay, and I know they got to do the orange to tie it into the rest of the Yuching, but like the whole ghost wolf thing, snow wolf.
I want that
in those colors,
camo, yeah.
So yeah, she's all right. Probably the worst of the box.
Yeah.
And then there's what is he, a Zhanying Imperial Agent?
I believe that is what it is. It's the one with the breaker rifles.
And he looks pretty cool. He is the, I think he's like the standard pose. Mm-hmm. Like nobody can complain about this pose.
No.
Because people are either like, oh, he's way too dynamic, or they're like, why does he have his gun up in the air? Why isn't he shooting it? And this is just a guy firing his rifle like you would fire a rifle. Braced at the shoulder, 2 hands, sighting down the right. So I think this is the safest pose to avoid complaints.
That's true.
Guy shooting rifle. And now, yeah. Obviously, they can't all be like that.
No.
But those are the complaints, right? Every time a model comes out that's not shooting his rifle, they're like, why is he waving around the air? Who would do that? Or whatever, right?
True.
So we could have every model in this exact stock pose. And then no one
would all be 3s.
Then no one would complain, clearly. No, I dig him. Again, he's really good for cross purposes, right? He used in role-playing games or whatever. He's generic enough and simple enough. I like him, and so I would take him even though I don't play the faction. So I guess it makes him a 4.
Yeah, that is a 4. Built it. I actually think the model looks cooler in person.
Even cooler in person.
Yeah, because it takes up more space. Actually, I had fun building this. I'm going to have to give it a 3 just because compared to all the other Yuching models that blew me away. So I'm going to have to give it a bias 3, but I can agree with your 4 on people that might see this for the first time in the box.
Yeah.
Looks cooler in building it, too. It's one of those models. Unfortunately, the Guilang was one of those models. It's like, that looks really cool until you build it, and then it actually downgrades it half a point. But yeah,
half a point from a 4 to a 2. Okay.
The Guilang? Sniper?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was a 3, but
okay.
I gave it a 2.
All right. Yeah, I know.
We have no 2.5s.
And then there's the Daofei. So, yeah, There's not much I like about this model.
That's funny that you say that because I remember texting you and you're like,
Yep.
that's weird. I'm like, no!
So
come on.
the armor design, because you can see it from different angles, the design of the armor is cool. The pose is goofy.
It's not, though.
Like spread eagle. The coat is weird. Like, I'm going to wear a coat that's part chainmail and part cloth over my power armor. And the cloth parts, we're going to camouflage it so that they can't see those parts of my bright orange powered armor when I'm in a tree. But the other parts of my...
digital camo, Tom. This is the future.
That's not... It's painted like camo on cloth. That's just
the paint style.
It's just a jacket. And it's a dumb jacket. I like the components. I don't like his final pose or the way he looks or this whole spread eagle weird. Yeah, I don't know. He's there to like all the elements are a 3, but just the way he look and you spin him around, and you're like the paint job's great, the sculpting detail is great, and then the overall effect is like 2.
No way.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
He's dopey.
Okay, so this was the first model I built.
Cool gun. Well, but never mind. I already said all the elements are great. The way they're put together is like, what a hot mess.
So when I'm building this, right? Building it, feet, blah, 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 all the way up. I always put the head on last.
Is the head a separate piece?
I'm pretty sure. I can't remember, though. Can't remember that much of the detail, but I remember...
I gave you my box.
Yeah, I know, right? So I remember getting the arms on and just yelling out to Kenzie, oh my freaking gosh, Kenzie, this is amazing. Come look at this model, which she doesn't even care. But it impressed me that much. And she comes waltzing in there. And I'm like, look how cool. It's like digital chainmail. And she's like, oh, that's really neat, actually. That looks really awesome. So when you're building this thing and it's...
You just said digital chainmail.
Yeah. Or futuristic chainmail.
You just said that out loud.
Yeah, I meant I said futuristic.
Like you weren't even embarrassed by it.
I meant futuristic chainmail. I said digital because I was like, it's digital camo, Tom. When I told her, I said it's like futuristic chainmail is what I actually use. I'm glad you called me out on that. Classic Kip, saying not what you're thinking. But yeah, like building it, having it there, the pose is like really ominous and awesome. Like when I first saw this, I was like, oh, the Dao is cool. Like I like it better than the other one because it's not skinny. It doesn't have that crazy, like long ponytail because he's, like I like this a lot better. But after building it, blew me away. Like once you have it in your hand and you actually see it from like in the 3D world, it's amazing. Like solid 4. I would have gave it a 3 because I'm like, oh, I've seen all the heavy infantry and it's to that. So no, this is a 4. Though when you have it on the table and you put it up next to like Tariq, they look like they're gonna box like Conor McGregor and Mayweather. Oh, that fight. But anyway, yeah, it's solid 4. Like I'm very excited about it. Like when I built it, it excited me. I've got a lot of joy out of it.
I'm glad. He looks dopey. On to the, what do you call it? Haq Islam side of things. We've got a Rajik jumping in with the boarding shotgun there. Cool. Much like the Hellcat is cool.
Yep.
Like the way that the wings go through the backpack.
Yeah.
Super easy. But yeah, solid 3. Solid,
again.
Real good 3.
Solid 3 again. And the connection point on the ponytail is a lot tighter than usual. Like the little square peg goes in there quite a ways. So it locked in pretty well.
Oh, good. Oh, you built this half as well.
I built the whole thing.
Okay.
I actually wanted this for Haq Islam rather than the Yu Ching.
I've never seen you play Haq Islam.
I've tried for the last 2 weeks.
Well, I've seen you at game night. Yeah. Anyway. So solid 3. What did you give it?
A 3.
And so Tariq?
This one's hard for me.
So this is... It almost feels like this is beginner Tariq.
Yeah.
And the Tariq that we've had for months
Is the upgrade?
years or whatever is like advanced Tariq. His pose is super cool. His face is all awesome. This guy's like, I'm going to stand here and shoot my Spitfire.
Can I ask you a question?
I hope he's super easy to build. Was he super easy to build?
Yeah.
No, you can ask me.
Looking at the original model, because I actually put the packages up next to each other. Doesn't put them packages up next to each other.
So you touched their tips, Kip?
I did touch tips. I crossed the streams. Anyways,
so after jamming their packages into each other,
after I slammed them into each other,
were you making sound effects as you played with your dollies?
This one looks bigger. This one looks smaller. Doesn't this Tariq look smaller than the original one, right? Like when you saw the original one, like, oh my gosh, he's so big compared to the other models because he's just like, oh.
Yeah, this guy seems to be taking up less real estate on the base, but he's also in a much more static pose.
That's why, because I actually built them completely the same. He just looks small.
Yeah, it's digital sculpt, so I imagine they'll be the same size.
Yeah, he just looks small next to everybody. And he actually, the built model is far cooler than just looking at it on a box.
Yeah, I mean,
so I was
all the detail,
surprised.
all the detail of the original is still there, but not all of the character is still there.
Very true.
This is a guy standing there shooting his gun, holding it one-handed like a super strong guy. The other one, the coat's sweeping around, and he's got the sword out, and he's got the scowl on his face, and he's super in the middle of like action, and and that Tariq is a 5, and this Tariq is a 3.
I would agree.
Like if we got this,
3.
if we got this one first, you know, a couple years ago, be like, oh wow, what a great model! Oh my god, Tariq's huge, and blah, blah, right? And then if we get the old Tariq now, I'd be like, oh my god, this was so much better. But it went the other way. It was like there was this awesome Tariq, and now there is like Tariq for noobs.
Yeah. That's kind of true. I actually wanted to saw the.
He's just super simple compared to the one.
I wanted to saw the front end of the Spitfire off and switch them so that this one would be the rifle. Like, I got my little rifle that I can shoot like a pistol, and the other one's like, I just smashed you in the face with my Spitfire. Now I'm going to cut you and shoot your friend from across the way. You know what I mean? I agree. I like the original one better. I did put them next to each other.
And he's part of one of the examples in that email we got about proxies and conversions we're going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, so yeah, I give him a 3. He's just meh.
3.
And maybe if we didn't have the other one, it would be a 4.
You would be a total 4 if we didn't have
it's
comparison.
Definitely less exciting than the original. Which is why I was saying I hope he's easier to put together, because this box, beginners might, you know, migrate to this as an expansion for...
The only ones that were extremely frustrating were the Guilang. The Zanying can be like, there's like one part that's a little frustrating, and the one we're going to talk about next had a part that was a little frustrating.
Don't care.
Were easy. But the freaking Guilang is the most frustrating.
Because we're about to talk about not just the best model of this box, but the best model that was released in the month of August.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the Assassin Fide.
Oh, man.
Look at this sculpt.
Yep.
So first, let's work our way up. There's tactical junk. And what I like about junk instead of rock is that junk can be anywhere.
Yep.
You can have techno junk in the forest. You can have techno junk in the sand. You have techno junk on the tundra. You can have techno junk in my band. So like, and it fits in anywhere because it's just there. Where you flip that around, you're like, I got a rock, and here's my my pristine, clean spaceship deck that all my dudes are built on. And now this guy's he brought a rock on board. Did he bring it from the holodeck? What is happening? Stop it.
It's frustrating.
And so I much prefer techno gubbins over tactical rock.
I agree. I like when they do either like the junk from like a tag or a vehicle, or like a model, like a dead model, like a combined or whatever. You know, like I do prefer that to the rocks.
Oh my God, this pose. The pose, and just go look at a picture.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and describe it. The pose is epic. The mask is epic. The musculature, the armored musculature is epic. So, I was like, I'll give Kip my box because I've got Fidesz. I've got the old Fidesz.
Yeah, Fidesz.
I don't need to replace them. And then this comes, and I'm like, oh my God, I need that. I just need that. I don't care what faction I play. I need that. That's a 6. That is a 6. That's a turn it up to 11. I give the Fidesz a 5 for days. 5 days. 5 days. I give him a 5 7 days a week. He's. Oh my God, I love that model. That model.
No, this model is a straight up 5. I remember seeing that. I'm like, okay, he's been impersonating a member of the team. He just climbed behind somebody, and now he's just crouching down to chop their head off from behind. Very imposing, sneaky. Absolutely love it. This is the reason, on top of the new fatality rule, but this model in general is why I wanted to round out my Red Veil with the Beyond Red Veil and start playing Hawk with that as a starter, because I want to actually be able to report on that. Hey, I've been playing 300 points, standard ITS missions with just Red Veil, and kind of want to report on that. I was hoping to have that today, but I couldn't play last week because we ended up having a nerd fantasy football for Infinity Peeps that I forgot about.
Time out on that. That's okay that you don't have the experience of running that to talk about, because A, you should do it for more than 1 week, and before you talk about it, and
that's good. That's
B,
a good point.
We are at 51 minutes and haven't even gotten to the show yet.
Holy crap!
We've
been talking for days.
We've waxed idiotic for 51 minutes.
Oh wow!
So that's okay. Then you brought up the nerd fantasy football thing. Mm-hmm. So that's going to do it for rating the August releases, and I had a feeling we should wait to do September for next week.
You're very good.
And so apparently that was a good idea. And so I'll do September next week. And if we did our shows, right?
Yeah.
That would be one of our shows a month, is just rating the releases.
True.
It took us a freaking hour to get through. Anywho, so Grant Fetter from the Personal Flash Paper podcast said, hey, people on Facebook that are nerds.
I love it.
Who's into doing fantasy football. And so in 2 days, we put together a little fantasy football league, and we had a live draft. Well, not live in person, but online. We had an online draft.
Online.
That happened Monday night smack in the middle of game night. He's like, everybody tell me what nights you can make it. And I was like, I can make it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just not Monday. And he's like, okay, guys, sounds like our draft's going to be Monday. And so, Kip and I left the game store and went on over to a nearby establishment and
drank some beers and drafted some players to
and a
football.
lot of smack talk. And so a bunch of nerds in the thing, and we'll keep you updated on how that goes. Not particularly pleased with either of the drafts that I've done so far this year. But yeah, so...
Can I give a shout out to Grant, though?
Sure.
I think he totally picked Le'Veon Bell so that I could get David Johnson. I really do. And unless he was just like, no, I'm going to pick Le'Veon Bell because he's a better stat guy. But I want to thank you personally for that, because that is, next to Larry Fitzgerald, my favorite football player in the entire NFL.
Get this. In the draft that he is the commissioner of, he, quote unquote, randomly selected the draft order. And we all log into the draft room, and who's got the number 1 pick? Oh, Grant himself.
Hey, that could have happened. You got first pick one year at yours, so.
I don't like first pick. I went 6th or 7th. If I had first pick, it wasn't my own doing.
I like first or second, or 12th.
The last time I had first pick, honestly, I think the last time I had first pick, I picked Sean Alexander because he was this big stud from Seattle, right? Picked Sean Alexander, and it was the year he just disappeared.
Yeah, that is what the downfall.
He was so good for 5 years in a row. He's fantasy god, and I was like, I finally get to have him.
Nothing. That was me and Adrian Peterson the year I got second.
Anywho, so right. Kip had second pick in the draft, and Kip is an Arizona Cardinals fan, and common wisdom says you pick David Johnson, number 1, Le'Veon Bell number 2, blah, 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 the common wisdom. And Grant went ahead and picked Le'Veon Bell. Kip is convinced it's because he was, quote-unquote, letting him have David Johnson from the Cardinals. I think his reasons were actually well thought out. And he's like, no, Le'Veon Bell was a more consistent fantasy producer over the entire season.
He was.
Well, except for the first 4 games. But whereas David Johnson was more up and down. So that's totally valid, but also super nice that he let you get it. Unlike the other Eagles fan in the draft who took the defense 2 rounds too early and took Wentz like 4 rounds too early. And so, yeah, but I sniped. His name was something about Ertz, like my butt Ertz.
Yeah.
And so I sniped Ertz out from under him just like out of spite. Anyway, no, so it should be fun. It should be good. I should lose. And yeah, no one cares about our fantasy. Anyway, so you have at least 3 me, you, and Grant. 3 podcast hosts for Infinity in the thing, and we're all like Infinity fans. And Shane Everly, who won Twinfinity, but did not win Friday night Lewis's tournament at Gen Con the way we announced last week. He came in second. I honestly don't know the name of who came in first. I was given false information. And if I can scroll through my chat with Lewis fast enough, maybe perhaps if Kip were to ad-lib some talking while I do it, then maybe I can find who the actual...
See, I thought you were actually segueing, and someone
Adam Van Steinberg.
That wasn't very good ad-libbing on my part.
Adam von Steinberg was the winner from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and yep, he wrote into Lewis so that Lewis could tell me that we gave the wrong name. I blame Mark Manlapis, who gave me all the winners' names. I don't know what his ITS name is, but congratulations. Well,
Adam von Steinberg.
See, you can see how bad I am with names. I read it. I read it 20 seconds ago and can't remember. Yeah, Adam von Steinberg. Sweet, congratulations to him. And sorry we screwed it up, but let's shut up about all of that. And now, if you're ready, because I'm ready.
Meat and potatoes.
Are you guys out there ready? It's been an hour. Are you ready for like the actual show?
Meat and potatoes. We've been snacking on salad for the last hour.
All right, it's time for the Great O12 Proxy War.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Then have a resistance, sir.
Yes. But why are they using such primitive weapons?
Now entering the war room.
So this came up last episode. This whole thing about like proxies and conversions and stuff came up because of the digital sculpting last episode. And it was my concern that using the digital sculpting where everything looks very similar, and again, we just talked about it with Swiss Guard versus Father Knight versus Orc, right? And my concern was if they make everything too similar, a la US Ariadne, it might make it difficult to distinguish the units across the table. So if they all look alike, the opponent has a hard time telling what is what, especially like in a crowded area like what you do, where you set up your fire team on a balcony or a bridge, right? And there's 7 grunts up there, but they're not 7 grunts. One's a marauder, and he's prone, and he's probably a lieutenant, right? And another's a 112, that you've converted out of a grunt, and that's prone. Well, out of a maverick biker chick who looks like a grunt. And because it looks like a grunt, you think, oh, that's the grunt paramedic, because you know the grunt profiles, and you're like, no, it's a 112. Okay, no big deal. You know, it's a doctor instead of a paramedic. You still want it to die, so these shock immune grunts stop getting back up from the dead. Blah 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 blah. That's where it came from, and then we sort of spiraled out into this unplanned conversation about models that look the same and conversions and proxies and all that kind of stuff. And we got, like I said earlier, we got an email from Michael Say back in July asking about that very thing. Like, what do you think about proxies and blah, 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 blah. And so I figured this would be a good topic to actually think about and make notes.
Yeah.
And have a conversation about once we thought about it.
Can I say one thing about Michael Say?
Sure.
Because I actually didn't realize until I've read this email over and over because he made a lot of good points. We already have one friend from the Houston area, John Lepper, and I messaged him today to make sure he was okay.
How is he doing?
He's fine. He said him and his girlfriend in a dry place, but he can't get back to his house yet. But he is safe and dry, and everything's cool. He says, "I survive everything somehow."
And for those of you who may not know, maybe you're not from Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah.
Hurricane Harvey made landfill at Galveston and Houston, and everything's
Corpus Christi.
Yeah. And so everything is underwater. In fact, our nation's largest oil refinery that turns oil into gasoline is in Houston, and it is not operational right now. So gas prices are going to go through the roof.
6 feet underwater in Houston City right now.
Yeah, and so the pictures are amazing, just up to the tops of the cars. And by amazing, I mean awful.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, that's what's happening. It's a national disaster. They're underwater, much like Hurricane Katrina and Louisiana 11 years ago, however long ago that was.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is I just realized that Michael Say is from Houston.
I did not know that.
I just scrolled down to his awesome picture of Maui from Moana, which is part of the funny part of the email. Houston, Texas. So, Michael Say, if you're listening to this, I really
you're okay, brother.
do hope you're okay. Hope that your living conditions are okay, because I can't not even imagine, what a lot of those people are going through, going home and being like, my home's ruined until hopefully insurance fixes it. So our thoughts are with you, buddy. I hope that you are good.
So disclaimer number 1 for this conversation. These are just our opinions, man.
Yeah, true.
My opinions will be different than Kip's opinions, and our opinions will be different than your opinions. It's all good. They're opinions. That's all we talk about. Our opinions.
What can I say?
We can give that disclaimer on every episode. It's just our opinion.
Yeah.
Disclaimer number 2 is I want to focus this discussion on competitive play.
Okay, that's good. That is fair enough.
Especially competitive play with strangers. When you go to an event that's not your local group and you're playing with a bunch of people you don't know in an area you're not familiar with. That's what I'm talking about mainly about these things. You're playing a friendly game in your own house or local beer
game night.
pretzels night, game night, whatever. Yeah, do whatever, man. Try out your stuff. But my focus on this topic is specifically for entertaining or for entering.
Are you entertained?
Yeah.
Are you not entertained?
When you're entering a tournament setting, specifically one where you don't know everybody and you want to be as clear as possible. And so my thesis is that I don't want to confuse myself or my opponent. I don't want to provide a negative play experience. It should definitely not be my opponent's responsibility to remember what all of my wacky stuff is because I think it's cool.
I was just gonna say, like, if it confuses you, you don't do it.
There's a reason. There's a rule in the ITS packet for this specific thing, and we'll talk about those rules in a minute. But yeah, you might be having fun and being cool. Like, think your stuff's cool. Like, it needs to be clear to your opponent, and the onus is on you. If you choose not to use the models that exist for the profiles, whether it's a conversion, whether it's a proxy, whatever, the onus is on you to keep pointing it out. Not just at the beginning be like, oh yeah, this guy's blah. And then when somebody does something dumb, take advantage of them. And then they're like, oh, but that's actually a, right, but that's a Fusilier model. You're like, yeah, but I told you at the beginning it was a Swiss Guard.
Yes, there.
Well, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And specifically for when you go and you're with a bunch of people that you don't know, tournaments. And as I went through stuff, Kip, I realized there were actually 3 different things that we were all talking about at once during the rant at the end of last episode. And one is like where it started with the actual models that Corvus Belli produces, where digital sculpting leads to some very similar sculpts that might get hard to distinguish. Again, back to the US Ariadne and that whole thing where they all were designed at the same time. They all look the same. And there's nothing we can do about that. Because if you follow the rules, it's, it's absolutely
Those
fine.
are the actual models.
And that's where my thing was like, well, with this thing, I hope they still make everything distinct enough that everybody can tell what everything is. And then we spiraled into other things, right? So that's the one, is the actual models they produce, right? Hope they don't all look alike. The other thing we talked about were conversions. Modeling an existing model into a new pose, give it a different weapon, kit bash several models into something new, right? You have a vision that you want to recreate. And so that's the other part.
Big into that.
Are conversions. And conversions are cool and awesome and creative, and I love them. As long as you can tell what the heck they are. And it's not confusing for you or your opponent. And you make sure that you are consistent all the way through. And what started the game as the Al-Wasil rifle doesn't end the game as the Al-Wasil paramedic or the whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And then the third thing were proxies. We're using a model that is not that profile to stand in for a model that is that profile. And one of the common ones and easy ones to understand that is never a problem is this Hunzakut is my Foxtrot Ranger.
That's funny because I do that.
Right? Yeah, it's from a different faction, so you're not going to confuse it with a Hunzakut.
No.
Because it's from a different faction. And kind of looks like a Foxtrot Ranger. And
it's a good flair because
has
there
a
was
Ghostbusters Ghost Trap.
Only one sculpt, so it's like it was fun to go in and kind of convert that. So.
And so those are the 3 different things: proxies, conversions, and then the actual models just looking all the same. So shall we begin with the official rules from the ITS packet?
I think that would be a good place to start because it was funny because I had to brush up on it. And it actually opened up a can of worms in my own brain.
And the worms ate into his brain.
Opened up a can of worms, and I kind of discussed a little bit with Tom before the show so that I didn't open up a can of worms on the show. Because my mind goes, but what about this and 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 this? So yeah,
there's a lot, and we're not going to hit it all.
No,
and whatever. And again, just our opinions, man. So the official rules, and they are sort of split up in the packet. There's a thing on painting in between them. Anyway, we begin with miniatures.
I was going to say, tell them where it's at because I missed it the first time around.
Top right of page 7. I don't know.
It's under miniatures.
Yeah.
Not proxies.
Well, it's a different section. The first thing is miniatures. All miniatures used by the players must be from Corvus Belli's official Infinity range and must be assembled, Dexter, with at least their main components and based using the base supplied with the figure or other of the same size.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Each figure must represent faithfully the unit it stands for, including its equipment and weapon options. Should the appropriate miniature not be available in the Infinity range, it actually says on, but in is the appropriate. Available in the Infinity range, you can use a different Corvus Belli miniature as a stand-in, but you must inform your opponent unequivocally of what that figure represents. Then there's proxies. Under no circumstance can miniatures from other brands or manufacturers be used as proxies. Obviously, they're making this awesome game that we all enjoy with these incredible models, and the only way they stay alive is if you buy their models. So, of course, you can't use models from other ranges in an official sanctioned event to represent other things. If you take a dude through his first demo game and his Ultramarines are Pan-Oceania troops.
No.
Well, that's one thing. But if he goes to a tournament 3 months later, he can't take his Ultramarines and be in the tournament.
No.
Right. And again, that's what we're talking about. That was disclaimer 2. It's the focus on competitive ITS play, not just demo games or beer and pretzels night at the local store. And then it says converted figures. Use of converted figures is allowed and, in fact, encouraged as long as most or all the figure is composed of parts from Corvus Belli miniatures and the figure accurately represents the unit and weapon.
That's the biggest thing.
Option it stands for. So yeah, you can convert some dudes and they might have some Space Marine ammo pouches on them. That's fine because it's mostly comprised of Corvus Belli miniatures. Blah, blah, blah. But in the miniatures, right, where even if they don't make one, as long as it faithfully represents the weapon, right? Same thing with conversions, as long as it faithfully represents the weapon. And that's super important, right? And so those are the official rules. And now it's just sort of stream of consciousness.
That was the thing that totally opened up a can of worms. Is like, it's the
into the microphone, Kip. Into the microphone.
Sorry, I thought I was there. It's like
the microphone's on your ear. It's not like an old timey phone where you hold one part to your ear, put the microphone in front of your mouth.
Nah, it's the if it doesn't exist, use a different one. But then, like, if it does exist, like, come on, try at least to use it in a tournament. I'd be like, no, use it. It's available. And the weapon thing is where I'm gonna be a little bit like,
Well, there's two things here, right? There is it's a long-standing acceptance in Infinity because not every loadout of every model is available, and so it's a long accepted thing where like. Look, there's no paramedic model for the Fusiliers, so I'm going to use the girl Fusilier as the paramedic because that's easy to distinguish because she's the one girl out of all the male Fusiliers. Or, things like that. Or Al-Hawa is a good example because there are only 2 models right now. One has a sniper rifle and one is the hacker and is very clearly hacking. And so what do you do for the forward observer who is not a hacker, not a sniper, and has a boarding shotgun? You can use either one. They're a marker state for a lot of the game anyway. But, so it's a long-standing thing in Infinity where they don't have every weapon on every loadout for every model. So you try to approximate as closely as possible, like a heavy rocket launcher for a missile launcher, because I don't think there's any profiles that have both options, right?
Not off the top of my head, honestly. It's one or the other.
If you take a rocket launcher arm off of one model to put it on the body of the troop type that it is supposed to be, and use it as a missile launcher, okay, that's fine. It still looks like the thing. But if you're like, this Fusilier with combi is a missile launcher, and this Fusilier with combi is my paramedic, and this Fusilier with combi is just a Fusilier with combi, who's supposed to keep track of that?
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
And so the weapon thing is super important. Let's get into that email from Michael, because he had a few examples that he wanted us to specifically talk about in regards to proxies, conversions, whatever. He says, example number 1, I like to run Captain Hakaslam himself, Tariq Mansouri, in games. I have the existing sculpt to use, but will often run him with a Spitfire. With the introduction of the Beyond boxes, does that mean I would need to buy an extra box in order to get the Tariq with Spitfire model? Or can I stick with the existing one, which I quite frankly prefer? Well,
I'll stop there because he has a couple more examples.
No, right. So we'll respond to that part of it. So to be the poopy head, the rules say you must represent faithfully the unit and its weapons. So technically,
this is where the can of worms happen.
Right. Technically, it's not allowed. However, you can't have more than one Tariq Mansouri. Right? And so that's not a huge confusing problem where at the beginning you're like, it's the same thing with like Achilles, version 1 or 2. Well, the new one looks way better than the old one, so people just use the new one for either version. You just ask at the beginning, which one is it? And, it's the one model, and it's not confusing because at least it's Tariq, and they told you at the beginning he's got a Spitfire. That's a super easy thing to remember. And so I think most people, most TOs, even if you do go out of your meta and into it, like most people would not have a problem with that, right?
I would agree with that. I was going to say that's where the can of worms happen because, like, technically, if you're going to be like, well, the rules say you have to do this, it's like if it's a unique character that's only going to be one on the table, to me, I don't see a problem with that because it's easy. That's easy to remember. You're like, Tariq has a Spitfire because most of the time he's going to have a Spitfire.
Now, when you get off of character models and into line troops or things that have a higher availability, I think it's important that it be the correct model. Right? It's the Vanguard Rodoc thing earlier. Both models exist. It's as long as the correct model has a different weapon, but you get as close as possible. That is much more acceptable than completely different models being completely other models.
Yeah, I wouldn't accept that. Like when you said like Rodox and Vanguard, no. In a tournament, if they're like, hey, I only have Vanguards, like you can't run those as Rodox. Like that's extremely confusing.
Right. It's somewhere else in my notes, but there's a whole like, if you want to try it out on game night, cool. But if you don't show up, like, if you want to play that list in a tournament, then buy the models. Like, sorry.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
If the models exist, buy the models. It's in the rules. All right, so Tariq, no problem, right? Especially because the other one looks so good, and he's a character. And you're like, yeah, it's the Spitfire version.
Rifle, yeah.
And I would be totally okay with that. Most TOs that I've known would be totally okay with that. Most opponents I've played would be like, no problem. Second part of example 1 is, likewise, I have the Kaplan with Spitfire solo blister that I will run as the engineer with combi and ADHL. Would I need to go out and buy the box set with 4 Kaplans to legally field an engineer Kaplan? Or are these cases where sharing which profile it is will likely be clear enough?
So this is where in my notes, if you only have one Kaplan who is very visibly the only Kaplan
Much like
on
Tariq,
the table. Yes.
being the only Tariq.
I would have no problem with that, even though it's like, well, that's a Kaplan with Spitfire. But yeah, I'm running him as a Kaplan engineer. I know they have the box, but I will never run more than one Kaplan right now. And it's the only Kaplan on the table. He's an engineer with, rifle.
Adhesive?
Yeah, ADHL. Like, to me, even if I was running the tournament or playing against him, I'm like, oh, dude, that's totally cool. Like, he's a Kaplan engineer. What was it again? Okay, cool. Not hard to remember. It's like he doesn't have a Spitfire. It's the only model on the table that's clearly different than anything else on the table because it's a Kaplan Mercenary, which is available in the QK. So you know that. Like, yeah, totally fine. If there were 3 Kaplans, yeah, you're going to need... I mean, at that point, you should have the box. But if it's the only one on the table, I have no problem with that. Like, it's totally
That is
cool.
pretty much exactly what... pretty much exactly my thoughts on the thing. Like, if there's only one, that makes it easy.
Yeah.
To keep track of. But if you're running a Kaplan Engineer and a Kaplan Spitfire, but instead of buying the box, you bought 2 blisters with Spitfire.
Yeah, not happening.
From my perspective, not my personal, but like from the opponent's perspective, like, oh, isn't it convenient that Spitfire one was always in the perfect position to do Spitfire-y things, and the Engineer one was always in the position to do engineering things. It's like, avoid even the appearance of evil. Like, like if there's one, no problem. If you have multiples, then you've got to have a difference and have the right stuff.
Yeah,
because that's it. Even if it's 2, that's where it starts to get confusing. Now that could also be an easy-ish conversion where you remove the Spitfire and put different arms on. Right? And
That's
then,
what I was going to suggest.
Okay,
Yeah.
the one with the Spitfire is a Spitfire because you are faithfully representing the weapon. Mm-hmm. And then the other guy who's got whatever bits and bobs you stuck on him, that's the Engineer because he's got bits and bobs. Mm-hmm. Cool. But yeah, throwing out 2 Kaplan Spitfire models that are identical and then saying this one's the Engineer, this one's the Spitfire. Cool. I'm going to remember that for the next 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm going to deploy all my forces. Mm-hmm. And then the turns, you're going to take your turn. I'm going to take my turn. I'm going to be like, wait.
Yeah,
which is which?
Exactly. Yeah, I would not be cool with that at all.
That's the only one? Easy. Mm-hmm. Example number 2. I really dig the Jaedan. It's a great model, and Breaker plus Marksmanship level 2, love it. If I wanted to run 2 of them in one list, could I sub in something like the amazing new Kamau sculpt for the second Jaedan? Painted in a similar scheme, of course. Or do I need to hope for the best on eBay or shake on it split box deals for one more Jaedan? So, honestly, split box deal, a trade, shake on it, it's the best way to go, really, if you want to run 2 of the same profile. Or buying a second box, because you can use all those other bits for conversions that are accurate in the actual model. But it leads to an interesting point where we made earlier with the Hunzakut, where that's not a model in your faction, so that's very easy for me to be like, oh, that's a Jaedan, because they don't have Kamaus in Hak Islam, right? So, yeah, it's it's not the best because it's not the right model, and it's technically against the rules. And if you're playing for, poops and giggles, fine, do whatever you want. But that's actually one of the best ways to proxy in a model. A worse way to do it is to use a Gulam.
Yeah, no.
Now, you might have 2 Gulams as, line troops and a couple of Gulam doctors, right? And then this Gulam is my Jaedan also. And now, so you've got Gulams being one thing and Gulams being another thing.
Nathan.
Right? And with his Unidrons being everything that ends in drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, ideally you'll get, pick one up off of eBay or from a trade group or go through Shake On It. or just buy a second box and have all those extra models to use for conversion bits and extra whatever, right? But at least using a model from a different faction is a tell. Mm-hmm. That's very easy for your opponent. And that's the thing, is being clear to your opponent, because you want to be fair, right? Playing a clean game and being like winning the game is not about confusing your opponent so that they don't know what's what. You want to be super clear. And so that's an easy tell for your opponent. Like, why is there a Kamau? And you're, oh, right, he told me it was a Jadan.
Yeah, like, so this is where I'm going to be an advocate for the conversion. Because I have used the Hunzakut as a variation.
That's a proxy. That's not a conversion.
Well, that's true, because I have not changed any really of the weapons. But different model in there. Looks good. If you wanted to take, a really cool Kamau that you like, take off the antenna. Like, if it's the new one, take off the antenna, because Hakazan wouldn't have that. Maybe even green stuff, a little cape on it to match the Shayadan. I think that's perfectly awesome, because and then it's painted in the same scheme, especially if it's painted in the same scheme, and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like a Hawk because you painted it that way, but it's totally different.
Like a Nisei might be a better...
Yeah, or that too.
Without his antenna, like the Nisei hacker.
Yeah.
Without his antenna, has the rifle, like...
Either way, like, as long as it's a model from a different faction, that you have, either you did some sort of conversion on, or at least painted it like your faction, and it's clearly not that, anything else in that army. Goes back to what we said in the beginning, is like, if it's the only Kaplan, it's easy. If it's a unique character, it's easy. That's the only Pano model that's supposed to be Pano, but you painted it like your guy. It's pretty easy to remember that's a Zayadan. So, like, I would be all for that. Rather than somebody, like, if they really like that and didn't need the other box, because technically it's a model from the line, and if you did some sort of conversion on it, it is a conversion from Corvus Belli, so that is within the rules, because it doesn't say it has to be from your faction in the rules for conversions. It just has to be a Corvus Belli miniature and accurately represent the weaponry of the model that's supposed to represent.
Yeah, you want to adhere to the rules, but the more important thing is not being confusing to your opponent.
True.
And so that should always be more important than following the letter of the rules. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's very clear. Like, you're not going to mistake that, because it looks like nothing else in the army, which is very,
following
very
the letter of the rules. I could take the man-faced female Ghulam, right? And I could not put her backpack on and fill in the little bumps in the back where the backpack goes with green stuff just to make it flat. Technically, that's a conversion. It's a model from Corvus Belli, so I can use that as a John Bazan HMG.
Oh, yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
But so I'm following the letter of the...
But it doesn't accurately represent the weapon that it's supposed to have.
Following the letter of the rules, but I'm being super confusing to my opponent. So that leads us into example 3, which is, say I want to run 2 John Bazan HMGs. Can I just use the marksman rifle guy as the second? This, to me, is the toughest of the scenarios so far. Because must faithfully represent
the weapon
is the rule, and the weapon is mentioned a couple of times in the official rules. And so, no, if I look across the table, I'm going to be like, oh, that's John Bazan Marksman.
Yep.
I'm sorry. We're supposed to say John Zaban for Dimitri.
No, it's John Zaban. It's John Zaban. How do I usually say it? I'm going to do it.
You say John Zaban.
John Zaban for Dimitri, because I love you.
John Bazan.
No, it's John Zaban, just because I love him. I want him to get so angry with me every time. I like the guy.
I don't think he gets angry.
He's awesome.
So yeah, the big guns especially are the toughest, right?
Yeah.
Like combi rifle versus multi rifle. Can you tell a difference? Even if they're both in my hands, I can barely tell the difference. But combi rifle or HMG?
Yeah, I don't agree. I would say no to this all the way.
So,
I And I've actually had
And my thing is,
experience with
why
this.
should your opponent have to remember what you're subbing in because you won't buy the correct models?
And this is a lot easier to do now because you do have they're pretty diligent about getting certain things out. The Spec Ops helps because I had to do that in the beginning with grunts. I used Ariadna Spec Ops HMGs to convert them up because back in the day, Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember what day it used to be. When I played Caledonia, forever there was no HMG model for the volunteers. Do you know how hard it was for opponents? And I had to every 3 minutes. Which one was the HMG? This one, this one, and this one. Mm-hmm.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's horrible. So I am completely against that now that there's options and there's ways for you to get the guns that you need to get on there. Completely against this. Like if it's got an HMG, it's got to have an HMG on it of some sort. Even like the Blackjack. It's like, well, he has an HMG, so that's the one.
Right. So now, if you only have 2 Jambazon, excuse me, if you only have 2 Jambazons in your entire list, right? Then, and you tell they're both HMGs, that's easy to track. Again, like we were saying before. But if you have a link team of 5 Jambazons, and you're like, the HMG is an HMG, and the marksman rifle is an HMG, but the sniper rifle is a sniper rifle, and this one's a paramedic, and this one...
So confusing.
Right. And looking across the table and planning your moves and stuff, like, don't think about, like, right now, try to take yourself out of your own personal view of... Well, I don't want to have to buy so much stuff. I want to use what I have, but I want to try these different army lists and take yourself away from that. Put yourself on the other side of the table, and you're trying to go across the table, and you're looking at your opponent's deployment, and you see Jambazon with HMG over there, and then another Jambazon with what looks like a rifle over here, and you're like, I can come out range that guy.
Yep.
Take the link team down to 4. Right? So get rid of that +3 ballistic skill, and then I can move over to engage the HMG, who's much scarier. And then you move, and they're like, oh, no, remember I told you that was an HMG. You're like, he's just got a rifle, man. So it's super frustrating, and that is the toughest one where they, like I said before, they pointed out in the rules, the weapons are some of the most important things, the equipment.
Yeah.
Like... It's not a super strict WYSIWYG like Games Workshop went to, right? But this is why they went to that.
Yeah.
Is because there needs to be no confusion during the game. Like, oh, this missile launcher is actually a las cannon.
I have a question for you though, real quick. So here's a scenario, and this is a realistic scenario. If I wanted to play one of my U.S. Ariadna lists, I have converted.
You would have to show up to game night.
Yeah, I understand that.
Oh, sorry.
So I have converted a Blackjack with HMG. It's
from an Ezreal.
Yeah, but it's
of course
head swap, right? Like everybody else did.
Did you put the cowboy hat?
No.
Thank God.
Take Hunter head.
No,
So,
much better.
But for the Blackjack with Sniper, thank goodness I chose the HMG version because of what we saw at Gen Con. For the Sniper version, a lot of times I proxy the Alpha Seed. Well, in a tournament setting, both of them clearly have HMGs. And if you have both of them on the table, now they don't look so different. So if I wanted to do that, one of them has a pistol. She's like, hey, the pistol. No, hear me out. I'm not finished. Really not easy to do. But what if I did this? What if whole army on the table, clearly a conversion with HMG. Then you have this other guy that's a big guy, and you know that one's an HMG, one's a sniper. There's a big flag based on that says sniper rifle, like written right above his head.
I mean, sure, if you want to do that. If I wanted,
would you allow that?
If I wanted to run one as a sniper rifle, I'd probably convert it to have an obvious sniper rifle.
But I want my Farzan I want my Alpha Seed to be an Alpha Seed. So if there's a huge thing that goes above his head, because I almost did this.
Then get another model.
Sniper rifle. Actually, I have a missile launcher one now. That if you saw a missile launcher and HMG, and they were both supposed to be blackjacks, and I was like, wait, the HMG's an HMG and the sniper's a Proxy.
You show up Monday night and you're just doing it. Fine, yeah, whatever. We play. But if you show up to Rumble.
I wouldn't do that at Rumble. I would not do that at Rumble.
And you're like, here's these two guys with HMGs, except this one's a sniper rifle, this one's an...
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No, screw you.
I would not do that. That wouldn't even be in the question at all.
Why should I have to keep track of your against the rules modeling or lack thereof?
But see, that's what I'm saying. Is like if your representation is I have this model, but there's not a sniper rifle big enough, so he's got a big flag. Like not at Rumble, but if it was like
brass
a standard,
rod comes in long lengths.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's that's exactly the thing I'm talking about. Like, okay, these two guys, they're identical. They both have machine guns. But this one's actually got a sniper rifle.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
That's cool for weekly game night and whatever. But it's not cool for a high stakes tournament where everybody's stress level is up and they're trying to keep track of their own stuff and your stuff. And now you're using models that aren't the models that are supposed to be the models that are like. And again, I think that's why they emphasize represent faithfully the model. Okay, an Alpha C could represent faithfully a blackjack because it doesn't exist yet, and they're the same size. And the weapons it's armed with. Alpha C with HMG has an HMG.
Super easy.
You can't use that as a sniper.
No. So I said I wouldn't do that in the tournament. It's too confusing.
If you want to go to a tournament out of town with strangers, you need to convert that model to have a sniper. I'm sorry. It's on you. If you want to run the profile, you've got to make, and there's no model, you've got to make the model. You've got to make it as clear for your opponent as possible and continually throughout the game, remind them what is what. The onus is on you, not your opponent. You can't say, well, I told him at the beginning of the game, and I have a good memory, so he should be able to remember everything I told him. And then the last example, right, example 3 with the Jambas and HMGs. I end up buying 2 boxes of all the weapon dudes anyway because it allows you to convert and make cool stuff and have all the correct weapon options. Like 2 SWC Fusilier boxes, 2 Pano starter boxes, and you can convert all those Fusiliers and their special weapons and make, so you don't have to have 2 identical missile launchers because you can convert, the one from the SWC box, and then you probably have Bolt, and that has a missile launcher, and it's a girl, and so you can take her arm, which is skinny enough to put on a Fusilier, and so you can do weapon swaps, arm swaps, head swaps all day long and get all the weapon options you need. I always end up buying multiple boxes anyway.
I agree 100% because I ended up with 2 U.S. Ariadne Army boxes and bought 2 of the special weapons because of that, because I hated that everything looked the same. It's like, well, if I want snipers, they all look like this. So I kind of wanted to convert different guys because it's fun to have variation in the army.
And then there's no example for it. It just says, and on and on and on. And on. Could I use a Gecko pilot as a Mag Guard pilot, even though there is a bootleg model? I mean, again, technically no. But a tag pilot, how long is it going to be out of the tag? And who cares? And yeah, tag pilot for tag pilot. It's the one thing it's not, sure.
Hey, painted with your army. Hell, yeah.
Most people wouldn't care. And then the last one was, I already covered it. Realistically, are the Al-Hawaz interchangeable? Laziques, Hunzakoots? Well, the Al-Hawaz I covered because there is no boarding shotgun to use as your forward observer, which, so, yeah.
And with the Hunzakoots, usually you have different markers. So on your sheet, they're marked 1 was this, 2 was this, even though they all have rifles.
Right, like Camo 1, Camo 2.
Exactly. So they're already distinguished.
Camo 2 equals forward observer, Camo 1 equals hacker.
They don't know that until it pops up anyway. So that's a lot easier. Laseek, I could see where he's like Laseek's because there's like one with a sniper, one with a rifle. If there's only one Laseek on the table and you're like, hey, I only have the rifle, but he's a sniper rifle, that's touchy. Because we just said if there's only one model on the table and it's very distinguishable, and he's like, that's a sniper. If you like, I don't have the sniper yet.
I don't have the sniper yet is fine on game night. Don't plan on going into a major tournament with a lot of strangers because the sniper's a blister. It's cheap.
Yeah, it's true.
And so don't, With the Al Hawa, though, it's like easy to track because like, oh, why would that sniper be so far in the middle of the field if they have a sniper rifle?
Yeah.
Oh, right. It's the forward observer, and it's the only other sculpt they have.
Very, very true. Or like my Unidrons. Like I wanted to say this earlier when you were like, hey, models, because the models look all similar. So like, I didn't want to jump in until now.
It's okay. Just talk.
Yeah, no,
it's okay.
So, so my Unidron unit, the Spitfire and the plasma carbines are very difficult for people to distinguish sometimes. Yeah, they do look different. But since at the moment,
if you're all up on them.
Yeah, I have all my plasma carbines fully painted. Base fully painted. Bought the support weapon box. I primed my missile launcher and plasma sniper, because those are clearly a missile launcher and a plasma sniper. But I purposely left the Spitfire silver, because when they're on the table and I'm playing with them, you have two fully painted base models. You have one that's just primed, clear missile launcher, and then you have the silver guy. That's very easy to remember that the silver is a Spitfire. They both start with S. It's like, that I told you, hey, I have two forward observing plasma carbines because those two look alike, and it's silver. So that's actually a really good way to as you're planning until you finally finish that model.
And that goes back to models that look
alike, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just because we were talking about like the Hunzakud, Al Hawa, a lot of them are they interchangeable? And I thought that was a good time to jump in with that.
Well, it's a good point because, some people are like, I can't even tell what any of the models are anyway. And,
that's very clear then.
Right. That doesn't matter. Then, and it, honestly, me too, right? Like I couldn't, like 2 years probably. And I was like, wait, how can you tell the difference between any of these models, right?
That's true.
And a lot of it, honestly, I think has to do with their publications. Every other game, right? Had like Games Workshop has, these are tactical Marines, and there's pictures of hundreds, and it says tactical Marine right under it. True. And so as you're drooling over the pictures in the books, right? It's being ingrained like these are tactical Marines, these are plague Marines, these are assault Marines, a big jetpack, right? And so it's part of reading the rules and reading the lore, and everything is there with titles and pictures. And Infinity really doesn't do that. The only gallery is online. It's not the easiest thing to navigate. And if you're not keeping up on the new releases each month and checking out the new release Facebook posts or whatever, you might not know what anything looks like. I honestly think it's a flaw. They have the best models on the market with some of the best paint jobs. Why are you not showing that off in your publication?
The storyline's starting to come up to par too, like the universe. And it was funny as you were saying that, you probably saw me giving the look, like as my eyes go to the ceiling.
Thought it was a seizure, yeah.
Like, that I was in depth of like, well, I kind of disagree, but then I agree because I personally keep up with the new releases and look at those all the time. But not everybody might do that. So, and that is the only way. And like, honestly, when it went back to Red Veil and stuff, I had to actively search for those because they weren't on the Facebook page. So you're true. I can't argue that.
Well, right. And so what you just said was, I look at it all the time, but not everybody does. That's sort of like I can't tell the difference anyway. That's not the point.
No.
Because there are people that can. Right. And honestly, the top players, the ones that are placing high in all these events, they can look at a model and tell you what it is, because that is vital to your success. Okay,
It's true.
If your success is measured in winning and tactical assertiveness and all that, right? If your success is measured in just having a good time with buddies, none of this matters. But again, disclaimer two. Talking about competitive events, right? They know what all the models look like. And so if you throw a model out that is not what it says on the tin, right? Can you imagine, like, the people that can tell what models are and know what everything is, and they charge up a flank to engage a Fusilier and find out it's an Aquila?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd be like, nah, bro.
Right?
come
No,
on.
that's a Fusilier. I just spent 4 orders to come up this flank because I can easily take that out and then sweep the flank. And now you're like, oh, you can't easily do that because it's a Aquila.
They don't have hollow projector level 1, so they can't do that.
So, and then like, I think we said this. I said this to you like in the middle of the break. Is like you're like, well, why is it a problem? As long as you point it out, then they should remember. So, not everyone has an eidetic memory.
No.
And so it's great if you can remember everything that's ever been told you, but most people can't.
Halfway through the game when you're having to make decisions and on the fly.
You're trying to keep track of your own stuff.
Yeah.
And what you want to do, and you want to make sure that you don't cheat by accident. And now I'm supposed to remember what your 5 proxies are as well. That's not fair to your opponent.
It's not. And honestly, I'm going to use this example that has happened to me at a lot of tournaments where they use just circles on the table. And you're supposed to remember that they're silhouette 5s. And when the game's on the line, I have repeatedly did this at Gen Con last year. Totally forgot. Oh my gosh, that's there. It's supposed to be a silhouette 5.
Would have blocked my advance, or
I was like,
you're not available to shoot at.
I thought you had line of fire, and that's because you have to remember that this little circle on the table that when you're looking at the table you can't really even see. It's supposed to represent something that like. So that's where I can defend this is like, hey, like if it's somebody's job to remember, no, not really. And yeah, your opponent will probably be like, haha, well, you forgot. Now I'm gonna take advantage of that.
And that's why for Arizona Armageddon, I am about to push the button. No, that's not the right phrase. I'm about to do the thing. I'm about to make it so.
Are you gonna?
There's a phrase that I'm missing. Braces on the Magritte. No, I'm about to do the thing where we're gonna get what's 5 times 32? 160.
Yeah.
Objective markers pre-printed from Muse on Minis.
Really?
And so
that's amazing.
Every table will have 3D objectives, and then I'm not going to pick missions that have more than 5 per table.
No, that's perfect. Because, like, for me, when you're really thinking and you're playing a very difficult opponent.
So, Muse on Minis Strom Post Alpha is a fully pre-printed 3D MDF terrain. It's got the full color. You don't have to paint it. It's already colored. And then they have objective markers. And so, yeah, I'm about to pull the trigger.
There it is.
I'm about to pull the trigger on getting the 160 objectives that we need for Arizona Armageddon. So that they'll all be, we just got to glue them together. They'll be all good to go. And then we'll have them in perpetuity. And they'll be solid and not a disc. And that's sort of like...
No, that's like a proxy.
Yep.
That is a proxy. And that has actually screwed me on more than one occasion, honestly.
All right. So we are at 1 hour and 48 minutes.
Nice.
I am halfway through my notes on the subject. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin in it.
Okay.
I'm going to put a pin in my notes so that we know where we left off. And we're going to wrap up the show. And next week, when we come back, we are going to talk about the September releases and then finish our discussion on proxies and conversions. And I'm going to try to not look at Facebook or read my email for the next week. So
that we don't get more?
so that it doesn't turn into another 3-hour episode that we have to break over 2 weeks. But
So will that be Proxy Mark 0.5 episode?
Proxy Mark 0 Part 2.
That's why I said 0.5.
Dumb names. That's the only thing I'm going to read are suggestions for the show name for next show.
0.002. I don't know.
Proxy Mark 0.000 repeating decimal. So yeah.
Funny.
But yeah, because we're I 2 more pages to go. I have as much stuff to talk about.
It's like
next
another 40
time
minutes
as I did this week. So we'll continue this discussion next time and break this proxy war over 2 episodes.
Conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
So let me thank all of the people who have signed up to bring tables to Arizona Armageddon. You should have received a very important email so that you can go to a Google form, Google sheet, and fill out some information regarding your tables and when you're going to be there, and just to make sure ahead of time that we're going to have enough for everybody. And we should be good because we are overcommitted by about 10.
Good.
So even if 10 people can't fulfill the commitment, we're still good. And so far, it's like 3 so far that were like, I was going to drive, but now I'm flying. Cool. No problem. We got you covered. Or, stuff like that. And so, but I do want to thank all you guys. If you didn't get the email, check your spam folder or whatnot, because it would have come from ArizonaArmageddon@gmail.com. We are sold out at 64. We keep having drops, but then the next person keeps signing on. Right now, as of right now, there are, in fact, let me refresh my mail app just to make sure I have the most up-to-date thing, because today...
While you're refreshing that, can I say something?
Of course.
So how many people that said they were going to bring tables have signed your Google Doc yet? Are you missing anybody? Don't name names, but how many are you missing?
About half have responded to the email.
If I have already responded, then you guys are the worst slackers
Knew this
in
was
the
coming.
world.
I knew that was
worst
coming.
slackers in the world. So when it comes to my actual work, I'm like Johnny on the spot. If I get an email to need to fill out or do something, or metrics, I love numbers. I love crunching numbers. My stuff is like the first to fill out. When it comes to hobby stuff or Tom saying, Kip, do this, he has to remind me like 3 times. I filled this out on the first thing because it popped up while I was at work, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give Tom the same urgency as I would at my job, because I enjoy this more, or as much. I love my job. I actually love my job, but I was like, I need to be on it. I don't like that people make fun of me for being a slacker, because I'm really not in real life, only in hobby life. Like hobby life, I'm a slacker. Real life, not. I'm a very go-getter. So if I've already filled this out in my hobby life, you guys need to get your crap together right now and fill out that Google Doc sheet. Because the guy that's always last to everything of signing up and paying just is already ahead of you.
No. So
I thought that would be a funny joke.
Yeah, it is. So thanks to everybody bringing tables. We've got 12 ish locally. Tables.
Oh, okay. I was like,
tables out of the 32 that we need, and some more are coming up from Tucson, a bunch are coming in from Albuquerque, and all over the place. So thanks, guys, for helping out and making this awesome event possible. And so we the 64th slot opened up again this morning, and I offered it to the next person in line. If he accepts, then there will only be one more person on the waiting list.
Oh, wow.
And that's Ian Latham, who's the last person on the waiting list. Yeah. So if this guy accepts, then, we're at 64 again. But Ian, then, rainbow fart smiles.
I was just say, just come anyway, dude. Just come and hang out.
Right? No, seriously, I need judges and helpers.
Come out and be a judge, and if this guy drops and nobody else signs up, then you can play.
I need extra TOs. I need helpers and all that stuff, because all of my usual helpful friends are all participating. And so I have like some part-time help pledged from Sam.
Oh, okay.
Who said he can't be there the whole time. That's why he's not playing.
Come on, Sam.
But he'll be there to help it. So, but yeah, I'm gonna need more. So Ian, if you want to come. Anyway, but if you wanted to get on the waiting list, you just go to that waiting list form, Arizona Armageddon 2 on Facebook, and you'll find it under Dire States, and it's there, and you can sign up on the registration form. It won't let you pay, but it gets you on the waiting list with a timestamp. And our waiting list is literally down to 2 with 1 pending. Okay. And of course, the last one on the list is poor Ian. And we'd love to have Leon come. That doesn't mean I want anybody else to cancel, but hopefully he can come. He can help out. And awesome stuff. It's going to be amazing. It's in 1 month. We got Tom's Barbecue all lined up.
It's not the best Tom's Barbecue in Arizona, though, because this is the actual Tom's Barbecue that is at a couple locations. It's a local barbecue that has like a restaurants. And to me, it's the second best Tom's Barbecue, because the best Tom's Barbecue in Arizona is from freaking Tom Shadle that actually smokes it in his backyard.
You are sweet and adorable.
Seriously, best barbecue in Arizona. But he's like, oh, I got Tom's Barbecue. I was like, you should just do it yourself, man. But if you weren't as busy like doing all this, you should cook, and it would be better than anything in any restaurant.
We have sandwiches, and we have 3 different meats. We're gonna have pulled pork. We're gonna have chopped beef brisket.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna.
Do you have ribs?
What's that?
Do you have ribs?
No, we're doing a sandwich meal deal.
I was gonna say you should smoke 2 racks of ribs and then have people judge.
64 people. Come on now. We're getting coleslaw, mac and cheese, barbecue beans. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's 2 meats. Anyway, but we upgraded to brisket.
Okay. That's good from there.
Yeah. So 3 sides, meats, the bread, all the stuff, and so that's all set. We got the patches already. The shirts are ordered. Everything's coming in. It's amazing. We're getting stuff from all the different sponsors and prize vendors, and it's going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see you all you guys in a month. And you know what? We've talked too long that I can't play Jupiter as our closing music.
No.
Yeah, unless I fade it out early, or I could just play the Aristea thing again.
Do it.
Okay, love you guys. Talk to you next week. We're going to talk about the same stuff, starting from where we left off. So it's like a 2-part episode. It's like a cliffhanger. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And until next time, make sure you get out there and, don't just save a couple of bucks online.
No.
Support your local game stores.
And thanks to all of our Patreons.
Excellent. Gata. Wild Bill. 8-Ball. Major Luna. Parvati. Maximus. Mushashi. Orestea! Fight!
Tom, what happened to Hexer?
There was only room for 7, man. Gosh.